All right, on Wednesday, we were working on our assignment 3. We are working on that all day today, really learning what the lecture topic is for today, March 3rd, the rudiments of animation, what the basic workflow is for building time-based media digitally. And these were the videos we had done so far. We had set it up with our storyboard sketch and then setting up our assets file and building up the things we would need for it. And we are equating it to stop motion, claymation, like where you build a set, then you build characters, and then you place them from your different treasure chest of options, of props, of character expressions, of backdrops. And then you have to, that's called setting up the scene. Then you need to shoot the scene and then put it into the film. And so that's what we'll be going over a lot today. So this is where we ended up. Let's find our files. It does seem like Photopea is still unresponsive as of today, so we're going to continue to use Photoshop, though I was able to use Photopea over the weekend, so I haven't given up completely on it. And we're going to have 2 files that we're going to set up. So we have assets, and we have the stage file. But I have not yet created the stage file, so I get to show you how that works. So right now, I am still in the process of the animation where I am building my characters and putting the tools together so that I can set up my finished frames. So let's right-click. Oh, let me clear these because we're making new videos today. Hope to make quite a few of these process videos and make quite a bit of progress and help you do the same on your animations. So I'm going to open that up with Photoshop. So last class was a lot about building assets. And it's always good to have your storyboard sketch visible so that you can refer to it, right? Because this tells you all those things you have to build. So I have my King Zeus here. Kind of looks like the Christian god as well, so that makes it a little bit fun to reveal that it's Greek mythology when we get to the end. And I have these different assets set up. I have a background. I have all the different ways I customized Zeus here. And then I have his left eye and his right eye, all of which can be used. All right, so these are my assets. Now I have my first animation frame. This works. This is the first thing on my storyboard. So how can I set up the stage? So I've set up my first scene, made the background, put the props where I want, lit it the way I want. Now how do I put it into film? So in Photoshop, it's a little different than how we would do it in Photopea. In Photopea, we would just save this as a JPEG and call it frame 1. Right? But in Photoshop, we're going to do it this way. We're going to say, go to our topmost visible layer, which for me is the right eye layer. Hold down Option, and then go to Layer and Merge Visible. So what that does is it makes a non-destructive merge, which is called a stamp merge, on top of everything. So now I have a layer that has everything within it. Now remember, you need to have a background, even if it's just blank white, but you need to have the full 800 pixels by 800 pixels filled in for this to work correctly. Next, I'm going to copy all of that. And so I can go to Select All or Command A. And now it's all selected. Then I can go to Edit and Copy. So whenever we move a frame, I like to think of it like having an old Polaroid camera. And I've set up my scene, and now I'm looking through the viewfinder, and I click that button, and it takes the shot, right? So that's what I just did. When I do a non-destructive merge, I'm taking the shot. You hold down Option, you click on the topmost visible layer, you hold down Option, and you say Layer, Merge Visible. And so you get this. Next, I do Command A to select it all, Command C to copy it all. And now I need a place to pull that Polaroid out and put it into like the album in order. So I need to create a new file. So I say File New, and I'm going to name it everything the same, except instead of assets, it's going to be stage. So it's assignment number 3 with my name, and then in all caps, stage. And it will be the right size because it can sense on my running memory that I have an 8 by 8 inch file there. And then I just hit Command V and it pastes it in. So that's my first animation frame. And I want to set it up this way. Assets on one side, stage on the other. And you see they're absolutely identical, except that this is made up of all these components, and this is just the finished film. Okay. I'm also going to get rid of the background here, just double-clicking it to unlock it, and then trashing it. Okay, now I can save that, and it's saving to the desktop. So I want to move that from the desktop into my assignment 3 folder, where I want to have very clearly a stage and an assets file. And then I open it in Photoshop. And you can do it in Photo P2, this exact same way. The difference between Photo P and Photoshop is once we have our stage file, we have all the layers we want for our animation, like it's a film strip, then we can actually use what's called the timeline tool in Photoshop to animate it for us, which just means to run the projector, to say stay on this frame for this long, then this frame, then this frame. If we do Photo P, that's really difficult to do. You have to do it with programming language, so instead we just output each frame as a JPEG, bring them into gifmaker.me, which is another site where you can set the timing. But this is actually going to be easier on that back end if we just do it with Photoshop. All right, now I'm back to my assets. And the problem is this Polaroid is still hanging out of the camera. And so it's not ready to take the next shot until I clear the cartridge, right? Because this is now covering up everything else. So what do I need to do? I need to hit Command D to deselect and then delete that layer, so I can set up the next layer. Now, what happens if you don't hit Command D first? If you hit just delete, it will clear the layer, but it won't delete it, right? So you hit Command D and then delete, so you can build your next scene. What's my next scene? My next scene has lightning. So again, more assets needed, right? It's a pain, but that's just the way it is. I'm going to build those assets onto the background, on top of the background, and I'm just going to make this as quick as possible, right? We know where we can get good quick assets, pixabay.com, and I'm just going to look for illustrations, because that's kind of the vector style I'm going for lightning. I'm going to scroll past the ones that are sponsored spot illustrations from iStock. And this looks like a pretty fun element to play with. So I'll open that. This is pretty fun to play with. Yeah, there's 20 pages, and I can go through all of them, but let's see. Do I want to do that one or that one? I think I like this. They're both nice because they're already cut out for you. So I'm just going to download it just as a PNG. I don't need it very big because I'm only working in 800 by 800 pixels. And now I'm going to bring it in. I'm not even going to move it to my folder because my assets file is the thing that stores all of these things. So if I move it in and bring it above there, I'll bring it above everything just so I can color it. And then I'm going to rasterize it because it's plenty big enough. And I'm going to fill it. I'll use the paint bucket and I'll use a yellowish color. And I'll just fill it in. Simple, right? Now I could do other things with it, but I want to keep it kind of cartoony and fun. So that's my lightning asset. Let's duplicate it and let's see how can we tell this story. So I want that lightning first to kind of strike and appear over here. So it's going to be from, whoops, from this to all of a sudden it's like this. And I'm going to run it behind him. So maybe I tilt it a little bit. That's why I duplicated it. Maybe I want to run it just like that. Because lightning's fast. So let's now move that down below. Okay. Now, when lightning flashes, there's usually some effect, right? Light happens. This whole sky turns white. So how can I imitate that? Well, there's a few ways. I could add an effect onto the lightning layer, or I can add an extra, like a lighting asset, kind of like a texture overlay, a new layer on top of everything. This is what I'm going to choose to do instead. And I'm just going to fill it, edit fill with white. So, could you put the magnet back on the lock? I just heard it drop. Thank you. Just so it doesn't lock people out. Appreciate it. So now this is just kind of like a little filter. So when that lightning appears, I can brighten everything just with one click, right? And if I want to vary that more, I can play with layer styles on it. Like maybe I want to do a gradient overlay. And maybe I want that gradient to be oranges. And I want it to be like this. And then I want to set that gradient to be radial. You can do all of this in Photopea as well. And I want it to change its scale. And I want to change its color. I'm not going to belabor this point, but you really can customize just absolutely everything. So I'm going to brighten it up there. And then I'll warm up this pink a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Maybe make it a little bit more saturated. All right. And I can even play with the blending mode of it so that it overlays. So you can see the kind of effect it might have. And the overlay just got rid of all of it. So let's try pin light. Nope, let's try normal. All right. Let me change that gradient overlay to make this white a little bit stronger. There we go. So now this is kind of a lighting effect that when that lightning appears, everything can brighten up. So even though the lightning is behind his head, this is on top of everything, so all the lighting changes. Does that make sense? So that's how you can kind of think through your assets and whether they need to be different layers or the same layer. And this is now my next frame. So I started, this is why I do them side by side. I started with my stage here. Command 0 will fill the screen so that they line up. And now I'm thinking of going to this right away. Boom. But that's my next keyframe. So let's bring it over. How do I do that? Hold down Option, go to Layer, Merge Visible. Now I have it all in one layer here like a Polaroid. Now I've got to select it all, copy it all, put it in the album. Just like that. So now I have 2 frames on my stage. Then I go back to my assets and I need to clear the chamber for the next shot, right? So I hit Command D to deselect and then delete. Okay, now, maybe before this lightning appears though, because I'm realizing in my animation that's just really fast. I want to introduce this character for a little bit longer than I show on my storyboard. I introduce Zeus and then all of a sudden there's lightning and then another lightning and then So let's have some fun with the assets we've built. So I'm going to save my state.